Yo, welcome back, man. Part 2 of the day, episode 16. And I'm back here with Blackleaf, my co-host to the left of me. How are you doing, bro? Pat Gott's here.
Awesome, bro. Big Amsterdam smokeout session today, huh?
Hey,
I mean, we've been chugging along.
I'm loving Amsterdam, and we're joined here by two gentlemen that have been gracious enough to welcome us in their country and ask us to be on their podcast. We decided to do a double feature, special collaboration podcast. This is episode 16 for us, and I'll let you guys introduce yourselves.
Yes. Hello, welcome. My name is Rens Hoppenbrouws. I'm one of the guys from the High Tea Potcast. And this is episode 44 for us.
Hell
and
yeah.
I want to introduce my co-host from the High Tea Podcast, Derrick Bergman.
Yo, Derrick Bergman here. I'm, as Rens rightly says, co-host of the High Tea Podcast, or aka High Tea with Derrick and Rens. We usually do the show in Dutch, our native tongue, of course. But if we have English-speaking, non-Dutch-speaking guests on the show, we just switch to English and make the best of it. And we sort of find the language of the plant is international.
Yes,
So we can usually connect to people in the cannabis world, so to speak.
It brings people together.
Yeah, and for us, it's great. It's always good to be in Amsterdam. We did a few legendary episodes already here, taped here in Amsterdam. And to be here at your spot, this is a really fantastic location, really nice Airbnb. The only thing that we already came up against is the smoking policies here are quite super strict.
And we
So-
smoke strong. So
I know. So
I heard.
I think that we took advantage of it. You know what I mean? Like when you have 5 people in here smoking,
and a bunch of good weed and really good hash.
I guess you do smoke out the whole building.
But
kids
then
get
again,
upset.
it smells really nice. You know, it's all good smell that you can have. And this is
It is.
Amsterdam.
Yes. But,
For
you know,
Christ's sake.
yeah, it is. That was the one issue we have had.
We didn't think it'd be that bad. We were even getting yelled at outside.
We were smoking
patio.
outside and they said it smells too strong outside. So then we had to go hide in the corner. They were like, the area in the corner over there, that's
Yeah.
your area for smoking.
Yeah.
And then we
It's-
got yelled at for that the other day too. So they said, can you go down to the park down the street and just smoke down there?
It's been,
That's how strong.
Oh, man.
It's
It's so sad.
No.
I'm sorry for the Dutch people and but welcome in the Netherlands.
Yeah.
Super nice guys that we can finally meet up. Because when I heard that you guys were doing or planned to have a European tour, it was really like it was for me like, okay, let's try to hook up and do a collaboration one time, because I'm a big fan of you guys.
Appreciate that.
You guys
man.
are really doing awesome, and you're bringing really knowledge to the
Oh, yeah.
people.
Thank you.
Rens, of course, drew me in to listen to you guys' show. You know, and I like it a lot. You know, to hear it from your perspective, your side of the ocean. It's very interesting. To speak for myself, I've been as a journalist, like writing and taking pictures and being in the scene since like '94. So that's a long time. So sometimes that's what's funny to me sometimes in the US and also in Canada, that people say, I've been working in the cannabis space for 5 years, so I'm a real veteran. And then I'm sort of going, yeah, a real veteran. Yeah, really. And
Drug war veteran.
You're still a soldier.
yeah, so to have seen all this and then really see we were talking about this before when we can't smoke inside here, unfortunately, like we always also try to do on our show.
Yes.
But we've been talking about this before, how it was really the Americans that taught the Dutch people how to grow weed and how to grow weed inside. Because to me, that's always fascinating to go into the origin of things, you know, who were the pioneers in the cannabis space, who were the first people to grow weed in the Netherlands. And it's true, in the 60s, there were some people growing weed outside in the Netherlands, and I actually met a few of them. But that was the common term for that weed in the 60s and 70s here in the Netherlands was spinach. You'd call it spinach. Yeah? You wouldn't call it like brickweed, because it was even worse than brickweed. You couldn't get stoned of it. It was more like a symbolic thing.
It rains here every day.
It's just terrible.
I mean, in greenhouse would even be a little difficult.
You need extra lighting if you do it in a greenhouse.
Yes.
So then what happened is thanks to prohibition, you could say, thanks to the war on drugs and the DEA, who started doing this police operations in California for the first time using the helicopters in the 70s to bust all the outdoor growers. that's when the California guys went inside, and these original granddaddies are the ones that came over to Amsterdam and taught us how to do it. So there were some pioneers that sort of also figured it out a bit by themselves, but hey, they were reading High Times magazine.
I mean, that was the beginning for a lot of people. When we just spoke to Mila, she brought that up. We said, when was the first big events for smoking or sessions, thinking it would go before that. And she said, honestly, the High Times Cannabis Cup, we all look forward, even the first one. That's awesome to hear, because as a kid growing up, that was all I wanted to go to. I mean, all of us.
Yeah, I sadly is before my time. I'm still a rookie, to be honestly. I'm in this industry for a little bit more than 7 years, 8 years. I started as a graphic designer.
Oh yeah.
And I started working at my father's cake store because I was a little bit tired of sitting behind the computer the whole day. And while I was working at the shop, I was thinking like I was starting smoking already, and I started thinking like, why is there not a coffee shop in my town? Because I live in a little town near Eindhoven, and there were like 15 coffee shops, but I needed to driven like 30 minutes to it. And I was living in a city where like 60,000 people, and we had everything, clubs, like everything a normal city would have, except a coffee shop. So I started to see.
He had his mission.
I was trying to organize to open a coffee shop there, and I really got a lot of headache and a lot of I say that it didn't work out. People were really against it, and at some point I couldn't say like they had a lot of opinions and stomach feelings about it, and I could always overrule them. But at one part, I could say them like, okay, you're right, because I said that the coffee shops right now still has to deal with the black market to operate the coffee shops, and
because of the Dutch government.
Exactly,
Crazy.
and he didn't want me getting in touch with the criminals. My city, I said it, my mayor.
Yeah.
So that's almost the mayor saying we need reform, which is the government saying, no, we're not giving it.
Exactly.
You can import it. We don't want you growing it here, obviously.
No, import as well. It's not allowed.
Okay, but they think it magically shows up?
Exactly.
That's what they jokingly say when they asked about it in interviews. Really, the high-rise politicians on the ministerial level, they sort of jokingly say that. And most of the journalists I would say in the Netherlands, that if they cover this subject, cannabis and the coffee shops, they will put like legalize it by Peter Tosh underneath, the news item, and make it into one big joke. And then if the minister said, "Oh yeah, it falls out of the sky," I think, everybody knows it's forbidden, and they make it into some kind of joke. Well, what does it mean? We call it it's been known as like the backdoor problem. Because like the front door of the coffee shop, as you know, here in Amsterdam or in the other cities that have the coffee shops, the front door is not a problem. You go in, you may have to show your ID that you're 18 plus, but then you're good. The problem is in the back door. All the growing of cannabis is illegal, the importing, the wholesale, anything to get your product that you are selling, it's totally illegal. The fact that it is illegal, that means that you have rip deals. If somebody steals your weed from you, you cannot go to the police because they will arrest you. If you say somebody stole 5 kilos of this really good weed for my coffee shop, you cannot do it. So what does that mean? Obviously that you need some kind of protection, and that's when all the shit starts going wrong. And we've been having this problem, this backdoor problem, 40 years. With 40 years of activism, well, I wouldn't say 40 years, because the first 20 years, it wasn't that bad because police weren't really going after the growers, or going after the coffee shops. Then it was quite relaxed. But my own organization, of which I'm chairman, is called VOC, the Union for the Abolition of Cannabis Prohibition. We started in 2009 because already back then we could see now it's really going backwards. Now we are really losing out. We could already see the change coming to your country in America. We could see, the different countries that moving in the right direction. And things started going horribly wrong here, and everything, more repression, harsher punishments. You used to be able to get 30 grams every time in the coffee shop, like a full ounce. You could buy it. Right?
Oh, that'd be beautiful.
Oh yeah, now you can buy 5 grams. Why did they change it? Because we got the criticism from the French president way back in the 90s. And instead of our politicians standing up for for our policy and saying, Mr. French President, how many people die of using hard drugs like heroin in your country? Interesting. With us, it's like 10% of yours. And then how many people actually smoke cannabis in your country, Mr. French President? It's actually double the amount that we have in the Netherlands.
Yes.
Instead of doing that, they were going on their knees and saying, okay, we will change the 30 grams to 5 grams. We will change the age restriction. I'm getting to be old. You know, I turned 50 this summer. When I was 16, I could legally go into the coffee shop because the age was 16, which back then the alcohol restriction age was also 16, which really worked out quite well because I wasn't drunk. I wasn't drunk all the time.
Yeah.
It basically meant that like younger people had a more sort of normalized way of sort of using these substances and learning from their parents and also from other kids how to sort of deal with them. And of course, if you are, that's to me always the defining argument. When will you start experimenting with weed or with drugs in general? When you're 21? Nah, I don't think so. 16, 17, or maybe 15.
Yeah.
And then if you know that if you reach that age of 16, then you can legally buy at least some. Because you could even say that if you're 16 and 17, then maybe only buy 1 gram, a day.
Yes, that's
and then,
smart.
Yeah, 21 plus customers, they can buy 30 grams. But this way, this used to always be the way of our drug policy, pragmatic. That, not morally motivated.
Almost all your policies, to be honest. You guys are very progressive and everything's very amazing.
But
No,
if you live
behind
here,
the
you're sort
scenes?
of behind the scenes that
Okay.
we it sort of looks like that, and in a way it is,
Yes.
if you compare us to a lot of other countries, I'd say we are more progressive, but to get like non-Dutch people to understand this, I usually explain to them the difference between tolerating something. This is what usually the policy is called, the tolerance policy, tolerance for cannabis. But it's a very different thing from accepting whether I tolerate that you are here with me in the room, or I accept or welcome you being here in the room. And that's really the big difference. To a lot of, especially politicians, they really look down on people that use cannabis. They think we
Crazy.
are total losers. They really have this backward idea, most of them, that because we smoke weed, we can't do anything. Which, of course, in this area,
Oh, my English, maybe.
but it's so interesting. You guys traveled all the way here. We have all this equipment. We're working here. It's on the weekend. We are very active. We're making media. You guys are episode 16. We are episode 44. I think we are good examples that you can smoke a lot of weed and a lot of very good weed and be super productive.
Yes.
And make a lot of stuff happen.
It's
So-
funny. I had someone give
Absolutely.
me some advice one time as a grower, and they said, go where you're celebrated, not where you're tolerated.
Yeah,
And I was
Yeah.
like, wow, it's an interesting point, right?
absolutely.
Very
What I love is just this term, which I'm pretty sure is an American term, master grower.
that's a rough one. Most real growers will shy away from being called that because I would consider growing like karate or like martial arts. You're kind of in it for life.
Yeah.
And
Always
there's
striving higher.
Yeah. But yes, there are guys that will call themselves that.
No. But even if you just to come up with the term and put it on somebody else, here in the Netherlands, you're like a common criminal. You're a lowlife if you're a grower. The whole mental idea, the mental space to call somebody a master grower of cannabis is foreign because we've been having this repression wave for 20 years.
That's wild because where I talk to guys when I'm working with younger growers, when I'm talking to them, I tell them that I think in 15, 20 years, you'll be like a baseball player.
Oh yeah.
People will be like, oh, I know the guy that grew that. That's that guy. Or he grows for that company. Even the company might not even be as relevant as the head grower for those guys, man. He's like a rookie. He's coming up in the league, very similar to sports players. We've talked about that. Me and Pat.
That's fantastic.
Pat
That's a
lot.
fantastic image, I'd say. Yeah.
I really tell young growers that. I say you guys have had it never better. Some of the guys I've worked with, this was their first job and it was 150 light grow. There's no better time to get in it than now. I mean, you can really become somebody and show your your skills and your difference and your knowledge and just your love. I mean, love beats everything. Passion beats skill, in my opinion.
And then would you say that that it's enough to really get this plant and use like plants for growing and making this fantastic end product? Or is it really also about making your own crosses and making new varieties? What would you say is?
I think it's so competitive right now in California and in the United States that you almost have to have all your own strains. Would you agree? I mean, you got to have your own lineup. You got to have, it's just for you to grow other people's strains. They better be the best. You better grow them better than anybody else grows them.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Or you have to have your own strains and all, and also grow them well. I'm not saying don't, but yeah, it's very competitive.
You gotta have your own hit single before you can make an album.
There we go.
That's how it kind of goes right now.
I think you made that.
It's funny that you mentioned it because like you were comparing it to some other
sports.
Yeah,
I'm
to the
so
baseball players.
stoned of that weed.
Yo, shout out to Fire Farmer
Holy
because we put him on that midnight snack.
He's putting me down.
And
I was already
sangria.
worried about that. I'm really sorry about that. But
I'll help you. I'll
hit you with that fresh
to it. You made the comparison with baseball players as growers.
But I also compare it to like with artists and like
record labels.
And like they have like artists under them, and instead of they bring albums out, they bring strains out.
Yes.
And like, yeah, it's thinking, but I always thought like that's a way like little growers could compete against the big licensed producers. So it's like how you say that they can start being famous. I say that they like how can you say that?
Celebrity, celebrity almost,
like
or like
if you're a grower
star.
If you have a grow facility, you can bring little growers with them.
Yes,
you can make albums or like breeders,
make them good. Yeah,
that's how I
stars.
see. It's the future.
It really is like that because right now, what you're seeing in the United States is companies that are either nowhere or somewhere, right? And their head grower will then either come on board or leave, and the company will go downhill. And it's an ongoing thing of like, hey, bring on this grower, pay him all this money, we'll get all this information. And then when we stabilize and everything's built out and we learn everything, let's let him go. Okay. We can hire 4 or 5 people in his place.
Exactly.
And do the same work.
And and then
that's the American way.
But exactly. But that's why I say I think the grower will even supersede the brand sometimes, because when brands bring in the right grower, it's like the partnership born in heaven. And that's the issues with the American market, as far as I see it, is, just explaining to you is that's why I think of them as baseball players. Cause like, you have your team, but you have your players. And when the new players come on the team, it makes the team better.
And of course, for our European listeners, that will be the soccer here.
Yeah.
Right now soccer fans all over Europe are talking about Messi leaving Barcelona. It's sort of the same thing. You can be a fan of Barcelona, but hey, if Messi goes, you're gonna watch the new team that Messi is going to for sure,
and they might not score as many goals.
Yeah, interesting. Interesting.
Yep.
So, it is like that.
But I was wondering about with all these fantastic products on the market, in California and in all the legal states, more or less, are people also still growing their own, or is that too much good product?
No, absolutely. There's people growing their own. There's people growing their own everywhere. There's so many states online right now that I think that's why our podcast has become popular quickly, because a lot of people are working in grows, they're trimming, doing monotonous work, and they're listening to the podcast while they're doing it because it's relatable and it's conversation within the community, which there's not a lot of conversation being created.
Especially not knowledge.
But there's people growing literally in every state, 100%.
Yeah, every single state.
And they've been doing this for years. I mean, there's probably people in Georgia that have been growing for 30, 40 years. Like, it's been going on. It's just now it's elevated, and now there's licensing, and now there's legitimacy, and we're no longer looked at as criminals, and it is a career path, and people are taking it serious now, and they're seeing the lucrative aspect of it. Hey, if you figure it out, if you tax it, if you regulate it, the consumers want it, give it to them. You know what I mean? So we still have a long ways to go. Still federally illegal. That's a big problem for a lot of things, a lot of reasons, banking and taxes and can't write anything off and stuff like that. But I will say this. I came here when I was 19 back in 2007 and I loved it. I loved the experience. It was much more free than the US could ever be with cannabis, in my opinion, in my experience. Now I hadn't been to Cali yet and I hadn't been to Colorado yet. I came here first because I thought, hey, Amsterdam's like the spot, I should come here first. I loved it. But now coming here back years later, I realized that like Amsterdam stayed right where it was in 2007 or maybe before. You know what I mean? And it just stayed stuck. And then meanwhile in the US, like we're progressed more than I ever would have imagined in my entire life. Even though it's still not federally legal, we are seeing things that are insane. The biggest facilities, millions of dollars being invested in this space. Just insane. Brands worth hundreds of millions. You know, even some of our homies and stuff, their brands are worth millions right now. And it's cool that we were all just coming up doing high times events and at tables and sessions and all this like 4 or 5 years ago. And to now fast forward and know that I feel like Cali cannabis is all over the world.
Yeah, I think
it's financed where all over the world. And I think it's
just walking.
I think it's the only place in the world that is being brought all over the world.
Yeah, I think walking over here to the tram stop, we passed the coffee shop and they had a sign visible from the window, Cali weed, 2 varieties. The one was, I think 30. The one was 30 and the other one was 20.
A gram?
A gram? Yeah, it's a lot of money, you know, especially 30 euros for just a gram of bud.
And for us,
really, really good.
A lot.
We do about 3 gram joints, 2 to 3 gram joints of just coming from the US of just flour.
And it's expensive there. I mean, it's not that it's cheap there. That's the thing too, is that, you know, good herb is expensive. You know what I mean? It's expensive to produce. It's expensive to have that kind of company. It just is.
Yeah.
You know, you can't cut costs. So I get that part. And for the consumer, of course, you want to make it affordable. And I know all the producers that want to make that happen. And I think that prices will come down and regulate more. And as we can,
they must,
you know, as we can, and taxes need to be more reasonable.
Yeah, of course.
We're battling that out, especially out in California and stuff.
That's a fun
They
fact.
think that it's an endless bankroll of just money flowing in, like just, you know, free money. But no, it's a real business with real overhead.
You should have pulled it the same way in America, like we have it here in the Netherlands, because this I love this story. You can go actually to the coffee shop. It's known as the Siberia verdict, because here was this guy that ran Coffee Shop Siberia that's still open. It's one of the first ones, a real nice one. And he sort of sat there really stoned, thinking about prohibition, about the legality of the plant. That is not there in the Netherlands. It's only tolerated. It's still all strictly illegal. And then he's sort of thinking, well, if it's strictly illegal, how is it possible that I have to pay tax on it if it's a strictly illegal thing and on the federal national level? So he just went to the tax office next day and he said, I've been paying my taxes on this illegal product, but I think it's really impossible. If the product is illegal, how can you put tax on it? And he went to court over it and he won. And then he got like 3 million euros immediately back for all the money that he already had paid in taxes. And ever since, there is no value added tax, that one, on cannabis, because it's an illegal product. So the coffee shops do pay taxes, but on their total profit. They are not like any other product that you can buy as the normal value added tax to it, but you cannot have it with cannabis. Yeah, why? It should be the same in the US, that you say, well, it might be legal on the state level, but not on the federal one. So, hey, there cannot be any taxes. But maybe it's only the local taxes that you pay anyway.
Taxes. Yeah, it's just state.
And then it's real
taxes.
high.
20 to 30%.
Yeah, here it's nothing. It's
Crazy.
0%. Really?
It becomes a 30-year bill. So if you go in and your bill's $60, 20 of that goes straight to the state, the government, which is a lot because, I mean, add that up every day because that's what users do. You know, that's what smokers do. So it is crazy. Pat God said something that really rang true. It's like, we need what you guys have over here, and you guys need what we have over there.
Yeah, really.
It's like a mixing
Really
of both.
Is it maybe like the grass is greener on the other side thing? Or is
No,
it really...
it's just that we have polar opposite worlds, and that we need coffee shops and lounges where we can consume, because
And we need good growers.
and you guys need to be able
Fast.
to grow it and sell it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know, we're able to grow and sell it, but we can't consume it anywhere for the most part.
Yes.
You guys aren't able to grow it or sell it, but we're able to consume here. So it's like it's blasphemy. It's pretty ironic.
That's
how it
really
works out.
that's also indeed it's a fun thing. The only thing that's legal with cannabis in the Netherlands is to actually use it when you're 18 or older, to use it. But then I recently had this discussion when we did the Canna bus project, when we bussed all around the country for the elections to get the smoking vote out. It was a great adventure. Rens helped me out also a lot with that project. I had this interview with like an what you call it, a justice attorney, what you call it? That's in the justice department and goes after like people before the police does it.
Prosecutor.
The prosecutor, yeah. So I said this while we were doing the interview, and she said, "No, the use is also illegal." So I said, "No, I know this for a fact. You know, I've been doing this over 25 years. I know it's not in. There's a whole lot of things in the opium law to have it, to transport it, to give it away, to sell it. That's all in the law. You cannot do it. But using it, it's not in the law." And then she said, "Yeah, but how can you use something if you cannot own it legally?" So that means, in fact, that also you cannot use it without owning it. So that was her interpretation, was even stricter. So that would mean that even the use is not legal in the Netherlands. But basically, this is what you have to know. The only thing is legal to use it. And then on a local level, the city council can say for any kind of territory within the city limits, if it's not the whole city, that it's not legal to consume it outside in the public area there. And that's also a very Dutch thing. They cannot do it for the whole ground of the whole town, but they can do it, say, for all the squares in the town, or
So they'll give you
the whole center.
They'll give you some. Like, sorry, but
and then if you are a smoker, if you're a consumer, either you have to look on all the websites of the cities that you are visiting to be sure. If the policeman, if he comes over to you and say you're not allowed to smoke that weed here outside, to know if he's like correct, you cannot know it. So all this stuff,
designated smoking areas, crazy.
To me, like I had been writing about all this bullshit for 13 years before I got into activism, and that was really also out of frustration. That, come on, how can you be serious about this? How can you have shops selling cannabis, but you're not allowed to grow cannabis? All this shit. And so yeah, we are still working on getting it legal. Yeah, but it takes really, really very long.
And this is what I said in a different podcast to a grower, and it's gonna suck because as they go legal, it seems like it's the thing that you guys are gonna want to do, and then I feel like, well, just like everywhere else, once you get to the other side of it, you're gonna be looking back like, damn, those were the days, because
you'll realize how good you had it with it being unregulated, because they'll start regulating it like halfway and then changing the regulations. And then it's just real mind fucking that you're just like, you're doing all this stuff that's costing all this money and seems impossible to complete. And then they're like, nope, that's actually the old way. Now we're going to do this way. This is the new
makes
law.
No sense.
And so you have to undo all that. And it's kind of what they did to all the businesses in Corona. And why the small businesses went under. I mean, they make an impossible chase and no one really knows what's going on or like what to do. Like even in California now or the US now, nobody really knows what the hell is going on. Everyone's just trying to follow the guidelines as best as they can and not screw up. That's literally it. No one knows if they're 100% legal.
Well, I mean, cannabis taxes alone, people drive every week or month to the state capitol. And or the state, or the IRS, and will literally drop cash off hundreds of thousands of dollars in taxes because we have to pay taxes, but we can only pay them in cash, and they have to be dropped.
Yeah,
so
that's
people,
crazy. Yeah.
So
they even
people
allow that.
Yeah. Well, they want the money.
Yeah.
So we want our money, but you can't get banking, and we're not going to allow you to do anything else. But please be here on Friday.
Yep. That's
well, and if you're not here by Monday, you know what I'm saying. So it's
what, the people
crazy.
do it because the people want to do right. and they just want security, and they want to be left alone with their families, and they want to enjoy the herb.
And most cannabis people are friendly people. So they want to they want to abide by the laws. Most people don't want to sit here and break. Just like when we spoke to Mila and she says, we lost a third of our growers, if not more, because of the Dutch government coming down so hard on things and all that. Immediately, she said that's why the cannabis has suffered so much recently. And it just makes total sense. I mean,
I agree. Eradication is a real thing all over the world. And it
doesn't work.
It's something that's just, I don't know, I would say outdated and just not relevant anymore to how much production is really going on in the scope of things.
But it just shows the grass is always greener because we're over here and we have all this production and we have something to complain about, right? We're always talking like, why can't we go to a lounge? Like, we wish we had Amsterdam. And then they're on this side where you can't even buy a carbon filter for your house.
I know.
Like we were smoking and we thought, oh, because of the issue,
we'll fix this problem. Yeah, no,
get a carbon filter. We have I have hundreds of grow stores by me. I'll just run up the street, grab a little carbon filter, put the fan on it, and within a couple hours, the house will be clear smell. I Googled for like 10 minutes and then started to realize. And then I talked to a grower and he's like, dude, you got to know somebody. Like if you walked into the grow store here and said, hey, I'd like to get these lights and this, they'd say, sir, like, we don't know what you're talking. He said they had to come in and then they're like, oh, yeah. Okay. Hold on one second.
We go to the back.
But that's crazy because the Dutch government,
insane.
There's missing out on taxes, missing out on business, missing out on even tourism. Like I know it's maybe not the tourism they want, but the amount is insane.
Isn't it a little too late to say it's not the tourism they want?
Yeah, they want.
Like Amsterdam is Amsterdam. Like I don't think you can change that. I don't think you can.
You guys are always.
I honestly don't think you can. And to be honest, the younger generations are curious and they want to come to Amsterdam. That's just the reality.
And to me, they should.
I think they should be let. Yeah, absolutely.
It's beautiful. I absolutely love it.
And this city, you know, for over 500 years has been like this beacon of liberty. It's not a new thing, you know.
Exactly. It's
philosophers and people with the wrong kind of religion, they flocked here. This is interesting. Amsterdam people will never admit this to you, but I'm not from here, so I can tell you this. Why did we have our golden century here and made all this money? It's because we got all the refugees coming from Antwerp, which is now in Belgium. And they all came here because they were allowed to have their religion the way they wanted it here in the Netherlands. And these were really, there were a lot of Jews also there. A lot of, you know, the diamond people and the money people.
Yeah, absolutely.
They came here and they contributed so much to the wealth that made our golden century here. So it was like basically built on being tolerant. And on really cherishing liberty and also giving that to other people that come to your city to have that. So to me, it's heartbreaking because I'm critical of Amsterdam being from the south of the Netherlands. But as a world citizen, which I am most foremost, I'm very proud of that heritage of Amsterdam, of the freedom, you know. And of course, and I think, like you said before, the most people that are in cannabis, they are kind people.
Yes.
I think it also goes for a lot of the cannabis tourists, if you can even call them that, because that's also what, there's so much prejudice against it. The idea that if you are a smoker, that you will only go to a coffee shop, you will be non-stop smoking weed, not do anything else, not go to a restaurant, not be in a hotel, not buy souvenirs, and making a nuisance of yourself, which is really what is done by people who are drunk. Not by people who are high on weed.
It's the opposite. I mean, we smoke a joint and then we're like, what's the best food in the area?
Yeah.
And then we go back and smoke another joint and they say, you want to go to a museum or should we go on a boat ride? Maybe we should rent the whole boat out ourselves because then we won't have a problem smoking on it. So that's the moves we make as stoners.
Of course.
So tell me we're not even coming over the top more than most people, right?
Yeah.
Like, look we rented the whole Airbnb. Because we wanted to have some freedoms to smoke. So it's like most of the time they think it's this, but it's actually the opposite. Most people who come here to look how much money they're spending on just weed. You think that's all the money they have? You know, so
I've met so many more intricate people that smoke weed than people that drink alcohol on the regular. Most people I know that drink alcohol on the regular tend to be very sloppy.
Or just mean.
You know, and it could go the same way for weed, honestly. But at the end of the day,
It's not a guarantee, but it's
yeah, it isn't.
you know,
At the end of the day,
It's a difference.
it's usually a good sign, I would
A
say.
tastemaker's a tastemaker, and a wastemaker's a wastemaker. That's pretty much how it goes.
We've met some amazing people out here, and I'm way more social with cannabis. I think cannabis out here is so
Absolutely.
social, man. One of the big things we've recognized out here is it was 9 o'clock at night. No lights are on in any houses. And we're like, holy shit, man. Everyone's out and about and everyone's being social. Everyone's in the coffee shops. Everyone's smoking. It just is different. And not everyone's on their phones.
Oh,
Very different in the weed community and in the social community. We'll go to a sesh, or we'll go to even the 1 or 2 lounges that are allowed, and everyone's on their phones. And it's a very like, hey, are you done? Hurry up and get out of here atmosphere. Versus here, it's just the culture is different and it resembles the businesses. Like, yeah, come sit down for a few hours. Would you like any tea? Would you like this? Let me serve you. Versus, what would you like? What do you want?
and did you experience this time? Is it also you
Love
had
it.
it 9 years ago as well?
He did. I have not. This is my
Because
first
maybe
time.
because now you're here for the program and maybe they know you more, so they give you an extra.
No, not at all. And you know, we like no one really ever
Recognizes us.
Nobody recognizes.
Yeah, we've never put faces to the brand. We did some video content this trip, and we probably will because just the people are asking for it. But in general, though, just the way the community is out and about conversating and being a community with each other, it's a different culture. You don't see that in Los Angeles. I mean, you don't see that in US states or anything like that. Like,
Yeah.
everyone's generally out, happy, and enjoying company of each other.
And
Nothing more, nothing less.
And also very much focused, you know, on being on a bike or walking in town, and not only being in your car or maybe public transport. Or
This
that's
is
what I
Bike
like.
City. I mean,
Yeah.
there's no more. I've never seen a city with more bikes in Amsterdam.
And it's a great way.
You can tell. You can tell with the air too. The air is great quality here.
Yep.
You know, in Los Angeles, we have a pollution problem. We had a bike system. Sure, it would work out and help out a lot more, but I think it's just too far gone over there, and it's sad to say. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, but you never know. With Corona, that was one of the great things I saw coming out of it from Paris, is that really in the center of Paris, they have changed a lot of the motorways just for bikes. So people can ride their bikes right in the center, because nobody really dared to go on the metro. Because, you know, with the Corona, you're all standing so close to each other. And with the cars, the bike is perfect for it. We all know it in the Netherlands. But to see the roads actually being converted and seeing all these bikes along the famous Parisian boulevards, that to me sort of showed, yeah, you can change it. That there's one account I follow on Twitter that it's great what they do, like 2 pictures all the time of a street, say 50 years ago in the Netherlands, a lot of in Amsterdam too. And now how the street is now, when they converted it basically for only bikes and pedestrians, for people walking there. So you can really see, it used to look so ugly, all these cars. And now it's great, because if you have that, you always get also more trees and, you know, just more green in the street, because you can do it if there's only bikes and pedestrians there.
So progressive.
So maybe in Los Angeles, they because to me, this might be a bit, we have this history segment in our podcast, which is called From the Old Box. So we can maybe just improvise a very short one here. One guy that was very important in Amsterdam Magical Center, as they called it in the 60s. This Amsterdam was a magnet for young people in the 60s, like also London and San Francisco was. But Amsterdam, that's when it started to be a very big draw for young people. And it was the weed, but it was the hash basically, because most people were doing the hash there.
yeah,
And one of the people that was really active in sort of promoting this and being in the underground circuit and the subcultural magazines and all this was a guy called Robert Jasper Grootveld. And he coined 2 phrases that are still quite well known in the Netherlands. One is in Dutch. Een tevreden roker is geen onruststoker, which would translate as a satisfied smoker doesn't make any trouble, which is very true, of course, for people who smoke cannabis. And the other one is that's lesser known, but I love it, I think, even more. It's about the bike. Bike in Dutch is fiets. and then his slogan was: "Een fiets is iets, maar bijna niets." And that would translate: a bike, it is something, but it's almost nothing. Meaning, for the environment, it's great. It doesn't take up all the space, It doesn't cost much. It's really almost nothing to have the bike, but it is something. And and of course in Dutch you have the rhyme, because bike, fiets, something, eats.
That's good.
Nothing.
I like that a lot.
It's
honestly.
deep too. It's
That
very,
is
very deep.
And this guy was just he was right in the middle. What you could say, is this guy crazy or is he a total genius?
Right.
And he was one of the big. He has this skit that he was the guy that made up the phrase Amsterdam Magic Center, because he was asked somewhere to make a speech and he didn't have any preparation, and he stood there and all a room full of people, and he really didn't know what to do, and then he got this sort of a vision, and he started talking right away about it. He said, all these young people will come to Amsterdam. They will come to the Vondelpark. They will sleep at the monument on Dam Square. This all came to be true because these were the hippies, and they did actually camp here in the Vondelpark and went to the Dam Square war monument, being there and smoking weed. So this guy, he was a real phenomenon.
Who would who do Dutch people coin as the cannabis pioneers here? Like, who are the, because like from the United States, we have ours that we see as Dutch, like these are the guys, but I have a feeling they're not the same guys.
I would say maybe because
it's a good question.
Because
it's a lovely question.
Yeah, because we had the documentary series here. That was like a milestone and a good moment. That for the first time, really, TV journalists really dove into this subject of cannabis and the coffee shops in the Netherlands, and made like a 6-part documentary series on national TV about it. And they basically had the big three, and I would agree with them. The first one is Bernard Bruining, who opened up the first coffee shop here in Amsterdam called Mellow Yellow. The second one is Ben Dronkers, who started Sensi Seeds, who started the Hash Museum here in Amsterdam, who first had a coffee shop in Rotterdam called Sensi Smile. So that's interesting. And then the third one would be Henk de Vries, the founder of the Bulldog, that is really, I think, worldwide, the most recognizable guy, most recognizable brand. If you ever heard of Amsterdam and weed, you've heard of the Bulldog. So you got to have a lot of respect for them. And these three men, it was very good. I know them quite well because I've been doing it as a journalist, writing about cannabis so long. You got to know these guys. And to me, to see them on TV and have so much time devoted to their story was great, To finally, like we explained before, if you're a grower, you're seen as a criminal by a lot of people, like some kind of troublemaker, whatever. We could never come up with a term like master grower. It will take us years from now to even maybe get to that level.
So what did they reference them in the documentary? Outlaws or pioneers?
As pioneers.
Yeah, pioneers.
Okay, so that's the start of it.
Yeah.
There was some criticism that it was like too pro-cannabis, but to me...
Oh, man.
And what's very interesting about this, and then you can see the how paradoxical our country really is. The filmmaker guy, the producer, is a guy called Robert Oey. He's married to the mayor of Amsterdam, which is the first female mayor. She's in there now. First female mayor ever in 600 years of Amsterdam.
Wow.
From a party called Green Left. And she's the one who's trying to introduce a tourist ban for the coffee shops.
How's that?
How's that?
Holy shit.
Insane, huh?
Wow.
Very
A
progressive.
bomb just got dropped on knowing what's up with Amsterdam.
I mean,
This
holy
is so
shit.
fucked up.
You're the first
Her husband knows the whole bit because he made this 6-part really good documentary series about
and it has some and put pioneers, not outlaws, so has some respect for these people.
I think a lot, because otherwise he couldn't have made it.
I mean, come on. That's very interesting.
Derrick has always has the thought that it's going to be a secret move of her, right? Like how you said it. Like she's gonna be very aggressive, and then she say, "Okay, I see it's not working. Let's do the opposite. Let's get more coffee shops or get more."
I was so puzzled by it. I thought this must be some kind of a tactical move. It's not. How can you explain that she would do it? But on top of all this, she has like a major in criminology. Hey, then you know what prohibition means, what war on drugs means.
Yeah,
what
we've seen it many times.
Means. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you studied it like her. So it's crazy. So then I'm thinking, she gets a lot of flack. You could wait for it. Our party is very progressive. It's green left. They're almost on the extreme left, you could say. But I vote a lot for this party. Not all the time, but I have voted for them. And she's a woman. Yeah, so she's gonna get all this shit like Hillary Clinton in the States. You know that conservative people, they'll have a field day
Because
calling
you think
her
progression, but not progression.
Soft on drugs, soft on foreigners and immigration. She wants to spend our tax money on bullshit art project and tolerance bullshit.
Yeah, let's protect the homeless.
Yeah, so maybe,
But let's not let you do that.
so, but maybe her thinking and her tactics is they can never say that I am soft on drugs if I am the first ever mayor to promote the tourist ban for coffee shops. Because up till now, all the mayors of Amsterdam have said, maybe you will have this close to the border, but please, we will not have this in Amsterdam. We get 2 million people to visit the coffee shops. If they cannot go in the coffee shops, all the dealers will be all over the place. It will be one big.
Will you talk about?
Well,
I mean,
do you think
Yes.
people would come here as often without the coffee shops?
That's
How
the
much
big
of a decline
question.
would you see in tourism realistically?
That's a very good question.
Because I know they come here more for that than the red light district
Yeah,
and
true.
that aspect.
What the mayor has done is she ordered some research. 1,000 people in the red light district were asked, if you were not longer able to go to the coffee shop, would you still come to Amsterdam in the red light district? And then about 70%, I think, said, no, yeah, then we wouldn't come. But of course, it's not a lot of people that were asked. But to do it right there in the red light district where everybody goes just for that, it's the vice district. You go for the prostitution and for the coffee shops, for the drugs. That's why you're there. If you would have done it on the airport or maybe in the Rijksmuseum and asked the people, if you could no longer come to a coffee shop, would you still come to Amsterdam? Then 95% would say, yeah, of course I would still come. And to me, the reality, and I know so many non-Dutch people who come here for the coffee shops, they want the whole package because that's what I really like when you it's always good to have praise for your country and for Amsterdam, but you also praise the atmosphere, the way that people, it's not only the coffee shop. No, it's the whole experience of Amsterdam. It's the way that the city looks, it's the canals and the way that most people would interact. And that's of course where they're coming from. So that whole idea, they call it, you are called in official terms, drug tourists. That's how they see you. Even if you spend all this money, they will see you as drug tourists, which to me is such an insult for people who we should be welcoming.
Because it's not only what we did. We also rented a full boat out. We also hired a 3-star Michelin chef to come cook dinner one night. We also went to some of the
Shout out
rest.
to Dizzy Doug.
Yeah.
Shout out to Greenhouse Secret Farmers.
I mean, but see, like that's.
Those are two really, really good coffee shops that you
big up
mentioned.
for them. I really like them as well.
But when she said she did the ban, I heard it was madness. There were lines at coffee shops.
Oh, yeah.
So look at what that incurred just alone. And then nothing happened. So it's like you spiked the economy. So I see where you're coming from thinking like, is this a trick? Because
Just
cannabis
crazy.
stimulates any economy just like alcohol does.
Yeah.
There's
There
no
you go.
difference.
Yeah.
There's absolutely no difference. And I think that cannabis is much more sustainable and people can have a family and a life on it still. Whereas if you fall into alcoholism, you can't. So what's the holdup? What's the issue? Obviously it's a money thing, but what about this? I think that with this generation going out and the new generation coming in, I think we'll be dealing with a whole new set of rules, standards, code of ethics, everything. And I also think that once mega companies like, these companies that are more powerful than all the governments put together, companies like Amazon, exactly.
Marlboro.
Once they decide they are going, which I think we've heard they are, and they will, then the governments will start doing what they want them to do because they're the ones that make the rules. They're the ones that make the laws. They're the ones that get things passed. And they're the ones that are sitting with the politicians and cutting all the deals and making shit happen in the background. It's the people with all the money that control the power.
And
Period.
And the tough part of that is, just like we spoke about, it won't be the laws you and I want. It
No.
won't be the laws that help us out.
It won't be for consumers by any means.
Yeah. And that's the same thing with legalization here. When they legalize, it's going to be a rough one because it always, we thought California, with the amount of presidents we have before that and how they were doing it and how open. I mean, it was very open 6-7 years ago. It was unbelievable. I moved out there. I couldn't believe
it was like here where you could walk in a coffee shop and sell herb.
Yeah.
Directly
as
to
a
the coffee
grower.
shop.
As a grower, as an
And you could also
extractor.
grow is if you had 99 patients or whatever, the typical guidelines, right? Very, not the most complex system, but easy enough to follow, easy enough to say, hey, mind your business. Don't be an idiot.
And that was Prop 215, the medical one. Eh?
Exactly. Then in comes Prop 64 and no one read all the fine print, obviously.
And that was the adult
And then they
use one.
kept changing it after it got passed.
refining it, but it was.
So that's what they do. And that's how, welcome to politics.
Yeah,
Welcome
well,
to regulations.
and the whole state, there's like there's a handful of lounges, and then even then they're just wacky.
I don't even,
Barbary Coast.
The best
and
we have is in San Francisco. They won that battle with, to have some lounges, but it's like, 15-minute limit, 20 minutes. It's nothing like the atmosphere in Amsterdam.
There's
at
no
all.
tea being served, really.
No,
There's no.
it's not welcoming.
Yeah, it's very different. That's why we say it's,
I've been
Get in,
in,
get out.
I've been in the States for 2 weeks or for 1 week and a half, and also to Canada. And it was in middle end of the winter. I was really excited and happy to finally buy some legal cannabis and also go to some dispensaries. But then I finally had the herb. But then I thought, okay, where can I consume it? Because I couldn't smoke in my hotel. I couldn't smoke in my rental car.
Not in the dispensary, obviously.
It was freezing outside. So I smoked all those things in the fucking cold. Oh, sorry. But it was not, you couldn't really enjoy as much as you normally would at home or at a lounge.
Absolutely not.
But Rens, you were such a snob. When we were before standing in the garden, because we can't smoke inside here on the designated spot, Rens said to me, there was this small bench. He said, Derrick, come, sit here. It's better. I said, I'm standing. And he said, to me, to really enjoy a joint, I'd rather sit down than stand.
Otherwise, you're on a rush.
So funny.
It feels like you're on a rush.
Yeah.
I don't
You're
like
right.
that.
You're right.
that's an interesting point.
To me, that's more about like walking.
But-
If you are walking and smoking, then it's not good.
See, if I'm
walking-
you gotta focus a bit.
I don't, but it's also like a thing. I worked in a coffee shop for almost 5 years. And at some point, I just was hating the people inside smoking because I was working in that environment. And every day, my nose was full and I was coughing. And it was
Because here,
really healthy.
90% still mixed with tobacco.
Not
you have to say.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
it's just full
At
tobacco.
least 90%.
smoke.
Yeah,
and
tobacco.
thick.
I was thinking, oh man, there should be only dispensaries,
Well, like Terps Army, they say no tobacco.
Exactly. Yeah, he learned me to smoke. Yeah, that's a new topic I want to put on.
What do you guys think about that?
From Terps Army?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
just the not allowing tobacco smoke.
Well,
and
No,
stuff.
but they have to do it. They have to do it. The law changed. Since
Oh, they do?
Yeah,
Oh,
since
wow.
April 1st. That's a lot of Dutch people. They have no clue about this. But the law here is not against smoking. It's against tobacco.
Yeah, but Terps
So you can't
Army,
smoke tobacco, but you can smoke weed inside a coffee shop as long as you don't mix it up with tobacco. So that's why a lot of the coffee shops now, they will offer you this tobacco alternative, which is like some kind of herbs or whatever. Actually, this company that we just had on the last
previous,
podcast,
yeah.
on 43, he made this new product that is made entirely out of hemp. So that's quite interesting, you know.
Makes
There's
sense that
zero
they would-
THC,
They would make hemp as the new
the new
basically-
tobacco.
or
Basically,
filler or whatever.
It's
yeah.
really a filler, yeah. But
Yeah.
it makes no sense because that's Rens is more of a specialist, I would say, and you are longer in than me.
I can explain it a little
kicking the
bit.
tobacco.
I've been, I'm organizing a cannabis cup in the Netherlands. It's called the Homegrown Cup. It's just for small home growers and they compete to each other.
I love it.
And every year we invite some special guests to get a little bit attention and get some extra, like people like them to be there and to talk to with. So at some point, we got a tip from Karma Genetics
Huge.
saying, because he always is around at the cup as well. But he said you should invite Lorenzo from Terp's Army. He is a really specialist, and you might like him as well. And so we invited him last December, and he spent. Well, I sent him a message because he was still in Spain, and the whole Amsterdam coffee shop was still not there. And so I asked him like, "Hey, would you like to be a judge for the Homegrown Cup? And if you like, you can have to come over to the Netherlands because you have to judge them, and we can book a hotel for you, or you can sleep at my place and just hang out and just enjoy the Netherlands." And he went for the second. He said, "No, I don't go to the hotel. I will go to your place." So I said, "Okay, that's also like the mentality of the guys. You notice how he is." And we had a very nice weeks, and he had some problems with his plane, and it was just a COVID test was just needed, and he didn't have, and a lot of problems also with his dog. So he needed to go back to Barcelona. So he asked me to bring him back to Barcelona. He said like, "Do you want a free holiday at my place in Barcelona? Can you please bring me back to Barcelona?" So I brought him back to Barcelona with the car. It was like a 16-hour drive.
Wow.
And I stayed at this place for a week, and there, yeah, he's just a passion. I almost never met such a passionate guy with flowers and with concentrate.
Because this guy is actually Italian, eh? He moved to Spain because in Italy the situation is really bad for growers. So in Spain, especially Barcelona, it's good for growers. It's not like it's legal there, not at all.
Right.
But there are so many more opportunities. That's why he went there.
And he's just doing so great. And while I was with him, and I was still smoking with tobacco, and he never told me anything about it. Or he never judged me. He's always. I could even smoke in his house. Even he has a no tobacco sign on his arm tattooed. But he was super open. Okay, he never judged me with anything. But I felt at some point a little bit like I was smoking the whole time, and he was just smoking at the points he liked to be stoned. He was more enjoying it. He was more, respecting it or something. How I really saw it, like. I was even like abusing it almost, I was.
Yeah, but it's true.
It's such a mind thing. And at some point, I was at his house in Amsterdam. It was like a few months later, but I still had that thing in my head. And then I just thought, okay, just let's try it for one day, because I never really did it, and I tried it before, but it never worked out because I didn't have like the good people around me to help me.
Isn't that important?
Yeah, you need some tips, how to roll a joint, how to enjoy it, which flower you need, because it's with tobacco, you mix it up and it's covering all the bad things, you can smoke everything, it doesn't matter, you get a typical kind of stoned, which works super well for me, but it was just not healthy enough, And I tried for a day, and that first day, Lorenzo said immediately, "Well done, man. Okay, now we can talk. Okay, finally, I never wanted to say anything, but damn, good job." So for me, it's just little steps, but with the help of also Karma, Lorenzo, the Pheno Lab is also one of my best friends. He is an awesome grower. I got some tree chems from him with me, and he really practiced. And yeah, I'm again a rookie. I still need to learn the flavors and all those things, because also normally I could smoke indica whole day long, and now I'm just slammed out on the floor. Like now, in the beginning I had because I got a few hits of your joint. Holy moly, man! I have to watch out next time.
The Cali flavors are really intense, man, and I realize that even from the stuff that's shipped in, because I see you. Dutch people buying the Cali weed, and then I've smoked the Dutch weed and the Cali weed, and to be honest, the Cali weed is power, and that's why I see people buying it, and I get it. Now you guys just need those genetics and the government to back up a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but also I was thinking most of the Cali weed I saw the test results of the coffee shop I worked for. They were always around 15 till 20.
Yeah, not super
Interesting.
High. And I get more stoned of it than like the weed of higher percentage of THC. And you guys will also mention it in one of your episodes, like the essential oils and the terpenes in it really get you fucked up.
That has more to do with it than the percentage of the THC. And the fact that they keep putting percentage on the THC is just...
That's our first thing. I got to do that because that's their thing.
Yeah,
so.
it's just confusing the consumer. That's all that is. It's a marketing tactic to just get your attention on it if you don't know what you're doing. You know what I mean? If you don't know what you're talking about, or you don't know what you're doing when you're buying a product, you're like, oh, well, this one's, because with alcohol, you don't do that.
You never judge it on the alcohol
explain basically the demonstration that guy did on the video when he talked about alcohol and THC. Remember you were?
Yeah, he said, okay, so can you imagine walking into a place and just saying, I'd like to buy alcohol with the highest percentage of alcohol? You know what I'm saying? With the high. He says, it's very interesting because you have, like with high-end cannabis and others, right? People think, well, it's got to be the best. It has the highest THC.
Yeah.
Well, does Dom Perignon have the highest potency of alcohol?
Yeah.
Do some of these, but those are prized as high, the highest of the high in the top brands. So why does it matter in cannabis? Because I mean, it is coming as a grower 18 years now. It means nothing to me. It really, you tell me THC and I think of it as like, oh, okay, cool.
It's been proven that you can get higher off less THC percentage.
Look at Skittles. I know you guys know about Skittles, and we bring this up a lot on the podcast because it's one of those, everyone can relate to it. It's a big hype strain. You smoke it, most of the time, it's 16 to 18% THC. You're getting greenhouse Skittles most of the time. The indoors, maybe 21 to 23 on the best growers, I'd say 26, maybe. That's not considered high at all, let alone you smoke that joint and the stoniest stoners are like, wow, this is intense. It really is psychoactive. And I think there's a lot to be said about psychoactive terpenes and psychoactive cannabinoids. Certain profiles, when you light them and they are fresh, act so much different and light up different synapses in your brain and nerves that it doesn't matter the THC.
The reason you got so high off this,
yes.
Number one, it's grown well. Number two, it's good genetics. Number three, the most important, it's very fresh. Very fresh. And freshly trimmed right here.
The Cali weed.
That's the biggest thing. Yeah. The fresher, the better. And it's all about fresh cannabis. So if cannabis is aged and sitting, it's going to give you that couch lock, cannabinoid, munchy, more negative side effect of the cannabis and of the smoking THC experience. The fresher it is, the more psychoactive it'll be. And the more it'll have you in your creative senses, your creative thoughts, creative communication, all these things that we, experience as we, have cannabis, especially for our first smoke of the day, as we come off of sleep or whatever we haven't used for a while. You have that first smoke and it just kind of, if you have some good, fresh cannabis that's grown well, it just sparks things that, it's an enhancer. It turns to be an enhancer. It's not a inhibitor. That's what
it should be. Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's an enhancer. Yep. And that has to do with how fresh it is.
Okay.
100%.
Yeah. We found that a lot, being close to growers and close to grows.
Whoa.
And obviously our relationship that.
But isn't there like a sweet spot where, like, say, after maybe 3 months after harvest,
3 to 4 weeks,
you would say?
I think that
it's like produce. What produce can you age for months? So that
or even flowers, or even
better
rosemary. There's a difference between fresh rosemary and aged rosemary. I'm not saying one's better than the other, but there's a difference. And some people probably prefer fresh. I only cook like there, and it's the difference with a lot of things like that. Well, cannabis is one of those things where people think, well, it's dry, so let's go 8 months dry. Well, THC turns to CBN and things start to convert, off gassing of terps, so things don't smell like they would
or taste like they would, which affects the experience.
Yeah, exactly.
And how about burn?
It gets whiter and harsher because there's less moisture. So like a trick people will play to higher THC. We'll take people will take a bud, over dry it, put it in a vacuum dryer or a freeze rack, right? Pull all the moisture out of it. Now that 0.5 has more THC per gram
Yeah, of course.
than before with a little bit of moisture in it. So they play these games where I could, maybe test 23%, over dry it. Now that piece is testing 32. Okay, that's our 32. So you can't play the game with alcohol. And that's the whole point, is that the cannabis experience is meant to be for you. It's meant to be for you and you. And the cool thing is we get to share with each other, but it's for you. So why sit there and say, well, I need 30% or I need 31? Find out what works for you, and then maybe, share it with other people. But for people to just go in blindly and say, people are buying this, or this is what the hype is, or this is the wave right now, I'll take that. Man, that's not cannabis. It's about finding you.
And you know it from your experience being a bartender at the coffee shop, that how much is the percentage of people that would just ask for the strongest one?
It's frustrating. It's
It is.
95% or something. My
Really?
boss, my ex-boss, really made.
And then this was is a really
mistake of
good coffee
putting
shop too.
behind the name, the THC percentage, and they only wanted to buy the highest one.
Yeah.
And I always trying to explain, like, come on, there's more than only the THC. It's like but yeah, it's pretty.
It's about
tiring.
educating the consumer. And that's why we're here. And that's why you guys are here, because with the amount of, like I said, you know what I'm saying, with our insider knowledge, we can bring something different to the table, and I can kind of shed light and we can all shed light on something a little different, because we don't look for that. And we're the top of the top consumers.
Yeah.
We grow the best cannabis in the country. We have, and that's the last thing we ask for.
Yeah, there's no connoisseur thinking about THC percentage.
Exactly.
There's not one.
True.
Yeah.
At
It's
all.
about flavor, burn, how it smokes,
And
what
the
does it
passion.
bring out in you?
The passion in your with cannabis,
Oh,
all those
man.
things. But I'm listening all your episodes, and I'm a big fan of you guys. But I always were wondering, and that's why I'm now finally able to ask those questions. Like, how did you start this first smoke of the day? Because we also started a little bit because there was just no any other good, like, not that we're good, but other podcasts.
We're the first Dutch language podcast ever on cannabis. Really.
Yeah, we can always
That's
say
awesome.
that.
Wow.
amazing.
After all that history.
That's dope.
Yeah, because there was no other, and he's a journalist for more than over 25 years, and he knows everything. And I was always listening to him with my mouth open and like wow, all those things. And I was thinking, like, we should put a mic under it and we should host it, because this is nice. Like, I learn from it every day. I think more people should learn from it. So that's how we all started the podcast. And because all of us network, we could like invite nice guests. Like, for example, like you were talking about a hero in this cannabis industry, in the Dutch cannabis industry. That's also Mila. Well, 100% sure.
Absolutely.
She is a legend. And I'm
Not so
really-
much, of course, for the coffee shop industry, but for the cannabis industry as a whole, and just for the whole space. She's
Yeah.
very
The hash queen.
the hash queen. Of
Yeah,
course.
exactly. So it's
Absolutely.
really
a lot of history
Yep.
with her, for real. And we were blessed to sit down with her earlier before this too. So
man. Yeah, I would be,
that's amazing. I mean, for me and him, we've been in the industry a long time. We've loved it a long time, and we've had a project together that we founded together. Moved to California at the same time, and
where are you guys from originally?
we're originally from Florida. He's
Okay.
from the west coast of Florida. I'm from the east coast of Florida. We moved out to California. We created a brand called Black Leaf, which still exists.
Yes, sir.
And basically, there's this subculture of cannabis that's going on and traveling all around the world right now and creating waves everywhere. I mean, even within the States and within other countries now. And it's all coming from California. And we just so happen to be friends with a lot of these people. And since we come from the industry, we know the industry in and out. We're friends with these people. We just felt like, you know what? For a few years, we've had the idea, but we just kept putting it on the back burner because, you know, business, life, it's really hard. This is like people think, oh, it's a podcast. It's just easy. You just set it up and rip it. You know what I
It's not
mean?
like
But
that.
no, it's an actual like business. It's a company. It's another brand. It's another project. It's another baby. You know what I mean? And this has meant a lot to me and something I've been wanting to do for a while. And he's really good on just a really good conversationalist and very informative when it comes to cannabis. And he inspired me a lot to dive deeper into that. So just seemed like a good matchup, and the access we have and how I have a knack and I feel like he has a knack where we can meet people and they'll accept us in pretty quickly and trust us pretty quickly. And then we can get that out to the audience and get that out to the world. And I think that it's just important for us to take that leap of faith basically and get the content out to the world and educate the consumers, because cannabis is bigger than ever and it's not going anywhere, and it's going to continue to grow every single year for the rest of our lives. So
Yeah.
here we are. And it's another cool thing too, is with podcasts, is that we get to have intimate conversations with people that we would otherwise have never got to sit down with.
True.
So
Yeah.
that's an amazing part about this. And for anybody listening, or for anybody that is inspired by podcasts or learning or just having combos with people or whatever, like, cannabis is a great way to get a group together to form a little community and share thoughts and just put your technology away and kind of zone out and dive deep into what, whatever's happening in your life, whatever you want to see happen. Me and this guy for years would sit in his living room or my living room. We would smoke joints and we would talk about all the things we were going to do together. And, granted be it, we've done most of those things. So it's good. You know what I mean? And we just started cutting these and dropping these, and we didn't have any help. We didn't know what we were doing. We didn't know anything. And it doesn't matter now, because we come from experience, and we've launched so many brands now, and we screwed up so many times now that it's a lot easier to put this together and not
That's what I
get
like to
held
say.
up on.
That's what I like to say about growing.
Thanks.
And that, I think that's some sort of definition or a smart quote by somebody who says a real expert is somebody who's made all the mistakes and faults that you can make on a specific area. He's made them, and this is what I usually use for being like a home grower. I've been growing over 25 years.
Mm-hmm.
Really, only 2 times I think inside. But so with this Dutch climate, it's something else. It's not California. It's certainly not Florida. It's just a lot of rain, and it's really bad. And it's people stealing your plants, and it's snails eating your plants, and all this shit. So this is what I still like to do it, because
Keep you sharp.
no, and it keep you sharp, but also to handle plants.
Mhm. It's peaceful.
To potting over these plants and sort of looking at them, because that's what I've learned, that any grower, real good grower, has told me, and now I tell them whether I'm good or not, but to a lot of other people, looking at your plants, that's the thing, observing them. It all starts there, and it basically all ends there too. If you really know the plants, you know them from looking at them
Time.
and feeling a bit, and then you sort of know beforehand what to do before problems get too big, for instance.
I like how you put that too, because there's a funny video that's going around and it went viral, and it's a guy and he's laughing in the camera and he goes, "Who are you?" He goes, "You think you're doing well?" He's like, I've already failed 10 times today. And it's a funny thing, because most people would take that as like, oh Lord, but it's funny because it's like, well, yeah. And now it took that to get, so I just thought that was a funny point you made because of that video. I mean, so you guys basically Amsterdam, what are you smoking out here? Like, when you smoke, what strain?
Well, it depends a lot. We're both on the High Life Cup, which is like the oldest cannabis cup in the Netherlands, organized by the oldest magazine, High Life magazine. So you get a lot of weed, and you get about 3 months to judge it all. And then when we were still smoking with tobacco, then it lasts you, and maybe in the long run it will work different. But usually, if you have the tobacco, it lasts you for a long time. So what I do is I have my homegrown plants that finish around September, October. They'll be dry in October. And I try to stretch the weed from the cup or from other cups until that moment, so I don't have to buy my weed in the coffee shop. And then, of course, I get a lot of weed gifted by growers and all this. But to me, I'm a big haze fan always. Like Silver Haze that was for me a defining strain way back. Before that, it was still, I was smoking also foreign weed, like Congo weed and Colombian weed, really like pressed brown, bad weed. And then skunk came along. That's when you're as old as me, you really had this. That the first time that Northern Lights came out, for instance, in the Netherlands, that people coming from France, from Belgium to coffee shops specifically because they know Northern Lights was a strain that was for sale at the coffee shops there. But for me, the Silver Haze one was always like a benchmark strain. And now I'm really into to the American strains, just the gelatos and biscottis and just these fruity strains. But I'm I'd say I'm different from because Rens you are almost 20 years younger than me, and I always say, Rens, if you say that weed is bad, you don't know shit. The kind of shit weed I have smoked in my time, and bad hash as well, but just really, really bad. So don't tell me that this weed is bad. This weed is like mediocre. It's like mids. You gotta have a bit of respect. There's so much worse weed. You're too much of a snob sometimes.
We are spoiled these days from back in the day. I realize that.
Totally.
The problem is, I learn a lot from like Lorenzo and Karma and all his friends, but I'm not a grower myself. I try to make sure the growers can grow, and I try to organize things to appreciate the growers and that the fact that are doing all this work all these years in the black market. So I can always like get some good flowers from a grower I know, but I have the moments I don't have the possibility, and then I really understand like how lucky I am and how different the quality is than when you buy it in a commercial shop or in a coffee shop or. So we're really spoiled, I have to say, and I hope like it's getting like we have a discussion a lot with like going smoking pure, and we notice a lot of coffee shop weed, and they get selected out by growers who still smoking with tobacco. Like this is how I see it.
Wow.
That's how they judge it.
Like they judge the growers in Holland, they judge with tobacco. So, my friends that smoke pure, they also select them while smoking pure. So they know how they taste pure. And sometimes if they smoke harsh, they don't select them.
That's like me going to a whiskey competition and then mixing some vodka in your whiskey and saying, how does it taste? That's the best
Coke.
one, isn't it?
Just Coke.
Yeah,
the best one. Yeah. That's the best one, right?
Yeah.
I mean, how you have no chain of, you're getting muddled. What tobacco are you even using? Is everyone using the same or using different than him? Because now you're getting flavor profile differently.
It's true. But what's very interesting about this, that I've been judging a while on the High Life Cup jury. And I've always also judged with the tobacco because it's my benchmark.
Okay.
From any weed or hash I smoked in my life, I smoked with my own tobacco. It's called Javanese Boys. I sort of long for it, but I've said goodbye to it now, for a month. But it smells really good. It's dark tobacco.
Very European thing, tobacco with hashish or flower.
I know. And this, a lot of people on both sides of the Atlantic, I think, do not understand. For us, when I started smoking, getting high, it was all hash. You could just only get hash. And
that's what Milo was saying.
A lot of different kinds. I even had Turkish hash, which is now you can never see it anymore in a coffee shop.
What was the best you've had?
Lebanese.
No, that was like legendary even before my time. They call it Red Lebanon. But to me, still, the best hashish you can get, if it's the real stuff, is just Nepal temple balls.
Mm-hmm.
The real dark, real sort of soft,
sticky,
yes. Just a minty kind of a flavor to it. It's so nice. That. It's just I like a lot of stuff, even mediocre hash.
We say this all the time. We're as big of fans of the industry as we are in it. Like I love trying, like buy this hash, buy this. Yeah. Which brand is this? Let's try that. Is just as much as we are producers.
And I must say that if you have a good coffee shop with a good hash menu, it can be just as much of an adventure to have all the different flavors and the different textures and the different effects with the hash. And this is a thing why I hope that I can stay off the tobacco forever, really, for sure. After 35 years. It'd be good, I don't want this COPD. I don't want any lung cancer. I just want to smoke pure. I don't want to die,
Yeah.
But then I talked to this old friend of mine, Belgian friend, and he said, and I think he's right, but maybe it's all in the process. He said, I smoked everything, used all the drugs that there are, basically. I believe him. And he said, the effect you get from tobacco and hashish, you simply do not get it from smoking pure hashish, from vaping the hashish, from eating the hashish, from doing something else. So to have that specific sort of really stoned out effect of real hash and really lying down for it.
It's potent.
You really might need the tobacco. But then I look at it, but if I get all these other experiences and these different kinds of high, and I can understand the flavor. You're very right about it. It's really crazy to mix it up with tobacco.
It's tough.
but
It's
then-
very different from the US.
Yeah, and but then for me, I'm so used also to how do you roll with tobacco. Hey, that's what it's good for. It keeps it burning for sure, even if the weed's dried very bad, you know. Even if the weed's really mediocre, you mix it up with tobacco, it'll burn, no problem. And same for the hash. So that's yeah.
I feel like born out of necessity from older. Now there's so much prevalence in how much weed is actually being produced.
Oh, yeah, because that's what I was going for to make the comparison there. What I've learned from everybody in America and in Canada is to get foreign hashies, say from Afghanistan, from Morocco. You never ever get it. You get weed that's either in the old days from Mexico or from somebody that's growing it wherever in the US. You get your homegrown American weed, but you don't get foreign hashies. And here it was like totally the other way around. So a lot of people started doing that, and to smoke this foreign hash, it is a lot harder without the tobacco. That's just a really nice and convenient way to do it. If you put it in an iron pipe, for instance, you can do it, but it's a different way of smoking, and I think it's also different from smoking weed.
I think different generations as well. See, the tobacco thing never was big in the US, and then also we grew up smoking with pipes, so it was such a commonplace. Yeah. So
it's not European to smoke a bong either.
even when I came up smoking hash in like 2002, 2003, 2004, I was taught. You put one little piece in there, you get a cherry on it. You don't even hit it with the lighter. You just tap it. And once it catches a cherry, you blow out the and then you just pass it around. And it's almost like a medieval or like Indian thing, or
Ritualistic.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And it's very psychoactive. Hashish is very different. Yeah.
And then especially if you eat it.
Man, why are there no coffee shops that just specialize in hashish?
Yeah.
15, 20 different kinds.
They used to have it.
Only devices to smoke hash.
The consumers, they want weed.
Man.
Really, they want weed.
Only
It's
like 20%.
yeah,
of
20%
smoke
hash.
hash anymore.
Oh, really?
But I personally think it's now I'm
It was way
smoking for
bigger.
2.5 months pure. I'm really thinking like everyone should try to change. It's like a whole cultural in the Netherlands or maybe whole Europe. Should
Because
try
everybody in Europe is doing it. If you go to Spain, they're all mixing with cigarettes.
France, everywhere.
I enjoy the options. Like I enjoy some days where we just smoke flower, but then coming here, it's like, oh yeah, let me try some hash or let me try this and you know what I don't see much in Amsterdam that I used to see a lot of movies and pictures of? Blonde hash.
Yeah.
Like cream colored.
Yeah.
And I brought that up and a lot of people say Corona and trade routes.
Yeah,
The best stuff either gets caught up or doesn't make it out or,
It's really
issues
hard.
with.
They can't
it's
get
changed a
they
lot.
can't get the Moroccan anymore.
Man.
And I would say in the Netherlands, 70 to 80% of all the hash that that's sold here in the coffee shop is from Morocco. And this has changed. They got like a bigger share of the market because, like I said, when I was young, you get more India, Nepal, Afghanistan.
And owners as well, right? I hear most of a lot of the issue is a lot of the owners now of coffee shops are also Moroccan or also people coming in.
True.
And the Dutch who have had pride and who had the small setups of grows and who ran the shop with pride because it was their neighborhood as well. It wasn't just they're out and people who, foreigners have come in and own the shop and it's basically an ATM. It's a money place and that's about what it is. And we've talked to a lot of growers who I understand with because some of it parallels to the US where you're trying to get your product in a shop and they're like, well, can we get it for cheaper? Because that's the only thing they're worried about instead of finding those shops that want to work with skilled growers who are taking those leaps and choices. Like we
Take
met
the extra mile.
Mean Green, one of the guys that we met, awesome grower, great knowledgeable dude. And it was interesting because his struggle paralleled our struggle in California in the beginning is Black Leaf. It really did. It was like all these shops that don't want to pay anything over what they've been getting on the street. They'll only buy this because of the price. And they can clearly see there's a difference in quality. And we had to convince them by showing them how many people would show up and that our flour would sell twice as fast. So you make twice the money. So then you still win out. And only some of the dispensary owners would even wrap their head around that. Yeah. It's like, I got to grow it and then I got to sell it for you. You want me to just hand you the money? And it's interesting because it all comes down to how you brought up a while in the beginning of the podcast, passion, love for the product. And without that, all you get is the greed and the money and all the other stuff with it. And like, I just can't wait to come back to Amsterdam because I know they're going to do the right thing. I know what's going to happen.
Yeah,
that we're going to come back.
I agree. This
and
will
the
happen.
market's going to be booming, and they're going to have grows, and you guys are going to have growers from other countries who are the stars coming here to show you like, hey, let me show you what I can do. Because it's the same thing that have with legalization, the bad and the good come. The good meaning growers are coming out of the woodwork wanting to start working again and strains, and they can because they're not worried about thieves or busts. But you're also going to have to deal with a lot of nonsense like maybe not being able to smoke in the coffee shops. They might just be retail.
Yep. Yeah, but
like
still,
what happened to us.
What you see now in Amsterdam, but also in other cities, is that some coffee shop owners, because of COVID, it was not possible to have like the consumption room. So you could only have like you buy it and then you go away. And then when they got used to that, after a few months, they're saying, I don't need the personnel. I don't need to clean it up. It saves me a lot of money. Maybe if COVID is gone, it would just be a dispensary.
And they're like, we make it the same money. Or almost the same.
No, more.
More.
They make more money
yeah,
because
less
they don't.
cost.
Yeah, less cost.
Oh man.
So then these are people that, for me, they don't give a fuck about what we call like the social aspect of the coffee shop, which is to me is
the culture.
Is very important.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
It also has a lot to do with like younger, unexperienced consumers being there, you know, and learning to smoke and how to do it in the coffee shop.
And meeting. We met a guy. We're sitting there. Next thing you know, we just struck up a conversation with a guy from Switzerland, and he's growing on the side of a mountain, and he's got these huge plants. Beautiful. It looked like it could have been on the front cover of a magazine, you know? And there, without that, we would have bought our weed and ran somewhere and hid and smoked it.
Yeah.
Which is like crazy compared to having a great social interaction with somebody I would have never met otherwise, who then we went out and spent money at other places.
Yeah. And I can tell you this happens all the time.
Yeah.
And a lot in Amsterdam, because obviously we get so many people from all over the world coming here. But as you know, also in Eindhoven, my favorite coffee shop that was unfortunately closed down by the mayor. But for years and years, they were the only one that had a big outdoor terrace with the coffee shop. You could smoke the weed. You could even have alcohol, which was like not even in
Super
Amsterdam was this possible.
Yeah.
And
It's a big no-no.
the atmosphere there was just so fantastic with Italians and students and all the people and total freaks and all these people. They all love to have a smoke, you know. So many people love to smoke some weed or smoke
And you see
some
people
hash.
conversating from table to table.
Absolutely.
It's like the only place where the multicultural society has worked out. Like I worked at the coffee shop.
That's
I
true.
saw like a Moroccan from all kind of countries and directions. They were all sitting together, enjoying and talking about really decent things, you know. And it was really I always thought, oh man, I really need to make a picture, you know, because this is unique. You know, maybe it's gone in a few years. You never know. But this is so cool. You never see it in a bar or any place almost.
Yeah.
Like it's super special, and we really have to hold that special thing. You know, it's almost the only place in the world you can have that kind of
right now
feeling.
it is.
Our cannabis cultures are very parallel. The United States and Amsterdam, we're fighting for things we don't have, and we have the things we have, but we don't, you know, we're like, okay, that's cool, but we want this, you know, and I get it. It's a struggle all the way to the finish line, you know, and I hope it never gets there for you guys like it did for us, where it's very difficult. We can't smoke anywhere. We can't, you know.
It's going to come around.
Yeah, well, I love it here. You guys have the most beautiful city. It's meant for this. It's meant for you guys to take your place in history, which you already have, but to step up and be like the California of Europe, the California of this side, meaning like you're a producer, you're a seller. People come from all over to come see you guys, you know.
Well, this guy I mentioned earlier, when you asked about who are the three, who are the main giants, you know, the real pioneers of the coffee shop industry. One of them, Bernard Bruining, famously said when he learned from a guy from California called Old Ed, a very old grower. He was like already growing, I think, end of the 60s in California. And after he learned from him how you could grow indoor and in a greenhouse, he said, I'm going to turn the Netherlands into the Jamaica of Europe.
I like that.
And he's sort of, that worked out.
That's funny.
This Bernard guy, he's such a, he's absolutely a visionary.
Prolific.
Yeah. And he's the guy who first ever showed me the Rick Simpson oil. And
Yep.
this was years ago. And he said to me, this will change so much, which, medicinally. Now, small children and old people who don't want to smoke, they can just have a few drops. It'll change everything.
Oh,
And I was sort of super skeptical, thinking, this stuff, it tastes a bit bitter, Bernard.
It's crazy because you see it work with a lot of people in the States with MS, multiple sclerosis, and other things where they'll have seizures and they go from having like 30 seizures a day to like 0 or 1. And I mean, can you imagine having 30 seizures a day? At that point, you'd say, I'll take anything. Like, just give me any.
Yeah.
And then you have people saying, no, this is not right. We don't think you should be taking this. It's like, go sit down on the couch next to that person with their seizure, and that's the issue, is that I think a lot of the mayors and a lot of the people just need to go to the coffee shop and actually experience it, and not in a political way, not with a bunch of people around them or security. What, you know what I'm saying? Like, go and just experience what's really happening
Absolutely.
there.
If you only spend half an hour, like say undercover, have a cup of coffee, then you see what it's all about.
But
And
also,
you see that there's no problem.
It's the same thing with cultivations. If you actually walked through a cultivation and met a couple growers who were real growers, maybe Dutch growers who has the love and the passion, similar to Mean Green. I mean, you talk to him for a while and you can feel the passion, I mean, a lot of these guys we've talked to, and that will break all stereotypes. You see what a garden looks like. You see how clean the right growers keep it. This is, I mean, if anything, they've helped build infrastructure. They spend money. The whole team, their whole employees, they pay for lunches, all the businesses around them, boom. And then you meet the right grower or the right owners, and it breaks their stereotype of who they think really is running the show. And that's helped a lot for us in the United States. I know, just in with my parents, and then even investors. I meet investors and I get a lot of the time like, man, we didn't know what to think. We thought you would be this. We thought this. Everything but someone that was presentable and on top of their shit and actually went to college, or actually, you know what I'm saying? And we're still breaking those stereotypes, but we're able to. And I absolutely love doing that. And that's what this podcast is about as well. Breaking stereotypes.
Yeah, that's, I also mentioned when I was trying to open up the coffee shop, I was talking with local politicals. And when we finally had a meeting, they always, when we first met, they always thought like I was like a big ass motherfucking criminal with tattoos full, and I was like a small dude just with a fucking plan and a passion. I just want to try to fix something, and I was always like, I saw it in their face, they were like relieved, like, ooh, like normal dudes, and that's always helped a lot. But it's still, we're still facing all those kind of taboos still in his life. Yeah, that's terrible. But
we have one generation to go, then that'll be over with.
Yeah,
I like what you think.
Completely different
mindset.
Yeah, completely different series of thoughts. And it just has to do with our upbringing and the things that people had to see during those difficult times and times of less. You know what I mean?
What they've been told and taught
through propaganda, media. And you can imagine we are much more free to make up our own mind than back in the days of our ancestors. They had one way to look at it.
Oh, you'd be killed for cannabis. That's what was crazy with
I'm
Mila.
just saying, like you're like, that's bad. And that's the only way you could look at it.
Gotcha.
That was the only way it's presented. There was like unless you knew someone and you had some special situation, which is very, very, very rare. You just know, because in high school, even for me, my age, I'm like, oh, if you're smoking weed, you're a bad kid. That's how it was for me. And I graduated 2006. So like I say, we're the generation that's now getting it and understanding it and kind of educating people. And there is some of the older generation that is reaching down and embracing it. But for the most part, it's the older generation that was brought up by their parents through that hardcore propaganda, reefer madness, all this stuff trained into their head that if you smoke weed, you become a crazy person. Basically, you know what I mean? So
do you think Instagram helped a lot with it, or did it already start?
I mean, Instagram just interconnected everybody globally.
Massive.
Yeah, I think
it really did. And I think it helped a lot of things, and I think it hurt a lot of things. You know what I mean? So that's a whole nother podcast. Brother.
Yeah, it is.
For real.
Even with genetics, I have a love and hate relationship. I have access to stuff now, and I get stuff and I can give stuff to people everywhere. At the same time, very hard to protect things because everyone can give everyone anything. People can ship. I mean, you name it, it happens. And it gets spread so fast. I mean, look at Purple Punch. Back in the day, you might have a strain, you'd give it to 5 people, and 5 people. I would laugh because I'd be like, they'll all lose it within a year because of all the hardships a grower goes through. Nowadays, they've already given it to 50 other people. I mean, that thing's out. You're done. And so with Instagram, there's a lot of interesting things interwebbed. But man,
yeah, man, we're wrapping up, man. Where can we find you guys? High Tea Podcast
on all platforms, or what?
Yeah, Spotify, iTunes, SoundCloud, and YouTube, and on our website, High Tea Potcast, and podcast spelled with a T. That's the podcast. Little joke at .nl.
I like
and,
that.
Yeah, it was a real pleasure.
Absolutely,
with you guys.
We could go for a day.
Yeah,
I already know.
No worries, marathon.
Yeah, part 2 coming up.
Exactly. I just really wishing you a lot of joy in the Netherlands and the Europe tour.
Absolutely.
And the rest of the continents.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Stay high.
I love it here.
Derrick, Rens, we appreciate you having you on, and we appreciate you guys accepting us in your country, and you essentially having us on your podcast. So
yeah,
thank you very
awesome
much.
Collab. Thank
First
you so
smoke
much.
of the day times High Tea
Absolutely.
Podcast.
Signing
Great
off.
hybrid.
Thank you.
Thank you
Peace.
so much.